This is the famous Minolta 7210 constant f4 doing something that was never even envisioned back in 1985 when this lens was first engineered. It's going to be interesting to see how much noise comes through from the autofocus. Let's turn around here. Turn. Zoom it out. That's at 210. Interesting. Yeah, this is at 70. It's a little tight in here for this, but focusing's working okay. All right. This is the Sony 1870 kit lens. That's at 70, and we'll pull back all the way back to 18. And there's some thunder. It just rained out here. This lens was included with a number of Sony cameras, and it came to me on one of the A200s I own that I purchased used, and I was going to sell it on down the river because I really don't need it. I have its focal lengths covered with other lenses, but I can only get $10 for it, and it is a nice lens. It's pretty sharp. It's got a nice range, so I'm going to keep it after all. This is another Minolta lens from 1985, sometimes called the little beer can. It's the original 3570 constant f4. It claims that it's a macro at this weird extension past the 70 millimeter. So we'll go out to 70. And then we have to press a little button on the lens in order to crank past. And I don't see it doing any kind of focusing, so I'm not sure what that's all about. But this lens is why we're bringing it back to the normal range. This lens is why I'm selling that other one. As good as that other one is, this one is a little bit better, although it doesn't have the reach that other one has, but I've got other lenses to cover that reach. So why do we need two of them? Whip around here, go from 70. I'm sorry, that was 35, this is 70. Okay. There it is. Okay, I figured out this macro thing. It is macro, but it's got to be macro. You got to get in reasonably close. It's about Now you can, that just changes the focus in the macro setting. Okay, that's too close. This isn't really any more macro than my 50mm is. It's about a foot away. This is another old Minolta lens. Their well-known 50mm prime f1.7. It is what I would call a pseudo macro lens. I'm about 13 inches away from that cat. And if I get closer to its face, there we go, it'll start going out of focus because it can't focus anymore because it's too close. I use this lens mostly for close-ups because it's fast and it does focus close. It's not the fastest 50mm that Minolta made. That would belong to a fairly rare and expensive f1.4. They also made an f2.8 that was a true macro. That f2.8 macro was supposedly not quite as sharp as this one, but if you have a compatible camera, I highly recommend this f1.7. You can get good examples for $20. This is my beloved Sigma 1735, a lens that I have had since my film days. Unfortunately, the transition to the APS-C DSLRs, I lost much of my wide-angle ability, which is why the lens following this was purchased to regain that. This is the Sony 11-18 super wide angle lens. I purchased it to regain the wide angle that I lost with the Sigma 1735 back when I first bought my first APS-C camera, and it does that job rather admirably. I missed my wide angle. Now this lens isn't quite the equal of the Sigma. It's slower and it's sized only for APS-C cameras. It gives a round circle evidently on a full frame camera, but if I ever do get a full frame camera, I will have this ability of the 1735 restored. This is my Tamron 28-300, although on occasion, for some reason, this camera, the SLT-A57, sometimes thinks that it's a Tamron 24-200. I see that in the EXIF data on just a few of the photographs. I don't know why it's doing that. But in any event, this is a pretty good walkabout lens. I'm going to leave it on this camera most of the time. This will be my go-to walkabout, grab it and go lens. Now let's see if I can rack out without getting too shaky. Okay, that's 300. All right, let me come back out of that so I'm not bouncing all over Goddess's green earth. Okay, this is handheld at 500 millimeters, so it's not going to be steady, even with image stabilization. I'm leaning on the garden wall here. Okay, let's try this again, because that other thing was an absolute disaster. And I put it on a tripod this time, and it's definitely a lot better. Hand holding that thing is not for the faint of heart by any means. Nice thing about this being on this tripod is, of course, I introduced a bit of camera shake with it, unfortunately, but I can dial in my focus a little better. One other thing this camera shows it's intended more for stills than movies is there's no secondary hole when you put it on a tripod. There's an indexing hole that video cameras have that this does not have. But that's okay, because I'm going to very seldom use this for motion pictures. Let's see, I want to pan around here for a minute and let's see how well I can do and keep it in focus. Alright, here we go. Down. I want to go over to the fountain. There's the armillary sphere. Slight adjustment there. And there's the fountain. And that is just entirely... Can I focus that close? And it's about 6-7 feet away. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Fairly shallow depth of field. This is a constant f8 lens. There's no aperture adjustment on it. Swing it around to the other side over here. And we're probably about 20 feet away. See what it takes to focus this puppy. There we go. And when things come into focus, they come in nice and sharp. Yeah. Of course, all the autofocus lenses, I can focus them manually too. And this is sort of the dream, the impossible dream. This is a tree, a palm tree, that is probably about 60 feet away. And let me see if I can pan up, and that is as close as I can focus this. It is racked all the way down to close focus at that distance. Let me pop this thing up into this tree up here. Okay, and all right. Okay, I can back off the stop just a tiny bit to focus that. That is about 100 feet away. I'm still in the backyard, but this lens will not focus on anything. And you may want to know what this is. Well, this lens is a 650-1300. It's at 650, and it is at 650 it's f8. If you rack it all the way out to 1300, it's f16. And I'm not even going to bother. It came with a 2x converter on it, which turns it into a 1300, 2600, f16, f32. I don't have anything to point it at, so I'm not going to even bother to try to do that. What I am going to do is attempt to rack it out and see if I can stay in focus with it. Okay, there it is. The lens's tripod mount does have that extra screw, that extra hole for the locking pin. So, who shoots movies with a 180-degree fisheye lens? Not many. This is the Sigma 4.5 millimeter full circle fisheye. And unlike every other lens in this video, this one has the hypersonic motor, so it's supposed to focus very quietly. So we will do that. The only time this thing changes focus is when you are within a couple of inches of something. Otherwise, it's focused on infinity. So what we're going to do, Persephone here has volunteered to be a test subject. I'm going to come right up to her face. See my hand over here? And it'll shift focus, and when I get real close, there it goes. Okay, then I'll back up. And it's considerably quieter than the screw drive. May Persephone's blessings go with you. This is a Phoenix fisheye adapter, 0.25x. It is on the Minolta 3570 constant f4 quote-unquote little beer can, which is currently set at 50 millimeters. You can zoom it in a little bit. That's going to be, that lens is 70. Then I can pull it back to 35. It's not the equivalent of the Sigma full circle fisheye, but it's pretty nice. Between the full circle fisheye and that 11-18 that I got from Sony, this lens is kind of surplus to my requirements now. But I did take a nice picture, 360-degree picture of the bottom of the Eiffel Tower, right in the exact center, looking straight up. This is a very rare lens. This is the famous Minolta 100mm prime soft focus, which in this usage on this camera means it's a 150mm. I'm not sure that anybody would ever want to use this for motion pictures. The idea behind it, it has this variable soft. It's set on sharp right now. It has a 0 to 3 softness settings with a 1 and a 2 in between, but it's continuously variable. So I turn this, that is 1, and then just a little bit more is 2. And then you can go all the way to 3. That's sort of not the thing it was in the 80s, going back. Now you do probably either do this through depth of field or through software, post-processing, but it is still here. It's an interesting lens. I had a heck of a time getting it. The lens came from Japan. I bought it from a seller in Japan. I found the original case that was made for this lens also in Japan by a different seller, but the lens hood came from, of all places, Finland. And it is actually, if you look at the picture at the beginning of this segment, it is actually for the Minolta 100-300 4.5 5.6 zoom lens. But I found out on the internet that is the exact same lens hood that is supposed to go on this lens. It just says the other lens on it, so it is correct for this lens. You have seen this lens before. This is the Tamron 28-300, and it is mounted with a Tamron 1.4 teleconverter. It's zoomed out right now, and that gives it an effective range of 420 millimeters, and then you multiply 420 by 1.5, and that gives you 630 millimeter effective range on this cropping camera. Then you come back, all the way back to here, and now it is at 28 times 1.4, makes it a 39.2. Multiply that by the crop factor, you're looking at 58.8 total effective millimeters on this thing. Getting all the math kept straight when you start doing crazy stuff like this is an interesting challenge. The full rack out distance you will find is going to be the exact same as the next setup, which I will be bringing out here now. Believe it or not, this is a totally different lens and a different teleconverter. This is the famed Minolta beer can F4, constant F4, 7210. It's racked out to 210. It's on a Vivitar 2X teleconverter, which makes it the same 420 that the other one was with the 1.4X, or the same total effective of 630 once you add in the crop factor. The interesting thing is back off of this. The interesting thing about this is this Vivitar teleconverter is made for the old 5-pin Minolta lenses. Nevertheless, it works on all of my Minolta mount lenses, including the 8 pins, with the exception of that Tamron that you just saw. That Tamron will not work with this 2X teleconverter because it's an 8-pin lens and it wants to see those other 3 pins. In any event, I will include a shot of the pinout of the 5 versus 8 for your reference. And I can take a better picture here. When I was shooting that other one, okay, where is she? Athena was lit real funky. But now, she's not. Athena's blessings go with you. One final afterword about the A57, which is this camera right here. This is an A200. This is the A57. This is my original A100 that I paid big bucks for about 15 years ago. This is another A200 that I bought for next to nothing because it was dropped and the flash and the image stabilization do not work, but it otherwise takes excellent pictures, so I use it for long tellies like the ones that I was showing you on the A57. This is an extra A200 battery grip that I just acquired. That one over there already has one. I am going to attempt to modify it to work with the A57. I find it a little bit annoying that there is not a battery grip available for that camera. As for handling, the A57 certainly has far more advanced features. Some of them are more usable than others, but it has far more advanced features than the older cameras. And it also somewhat approaches the Sony ZV-1, which is what I'm shooting this video with. The A57 kind of bridges the gap between the older SLRs and this new teensy-weensy tiny ZV-1 camera. As you saw when I was shooting video with the A57, with my various lenses, the screw drive focusing, which is perfectly fine for still photography, just does not cut it for videography. An off-camera microphone certainly would help that, and I actually have one. This guy right here that I use with this ZV-1 when I'm close up to it so that I can get the microphone away from my face, because otherwise it picks up my breathing. That would solve part of the problem, but the other part of the problem is the screw drive focusing is also slow as well as noisy. So as you could see with the fisheye, the hypersonic motor technology works a lot better for videography. But I didn't buy the 57 for videography. I might use it as a manually focused camera B somewhere, but I bought it for stills. Just like this ZV-1, it takes excellent stills, but I didn't really buy it for that. I bought it for videography. That is all I have to say, so God bless.